Welcome to the Holy Rebellion. Welcome to the Holy Rebellion. We're glad to have you.
Thanks so much, Christian.
So would you just give us a quick sampling of who you are and what you're doing, for those who don't know?
Yeah, so I'm Curtis Morley, and I'm currently writing a book and have started a company called Counterfeit Emotions. And the premise behind Counterfeit Emotions is that every emotion that serves us, every emotion that takes us where we want to go and helps us in our lives has a counterfeit. And except for one. There's one emotion that has no counterfeit.
So
And
curious.
and that emotion is peace. Peace is the only emotion that can't be counterfeited.
That is really interesting.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm going to come back to that because I want to know more about that. So kind of the purpose of the Holy Rebellion, the whole idea that got this started is we just wanted to start a movement against a rebellion against the gods of the day and a movement towards the God. And I think President Nelson said it best when he said, the most important question you will answer is to whom or what you will give your life. And so to kick us off here, I'd like to pose that question to you, Curtis. What do you worship? Or in other words, to whom or what will you give your life?
Yeah, that one's easy. That one's super easy. Is I do worship God and and have a very firm belief in God and Jesus Christ as my Savior and Redeemer.
Beautiful. Would you share with us how you came to have that? Like, tell us the story of how you came to worship Jesus.
It started at a really young age. I I remember hearing, I believe it was President, um, oh, who was it? It wasn't President Hinckley. It was, um,
The one right before. He died when I was 2, so I always forget. Was it Kimball?
Kimball. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Kimball. President Kimball in conference, he said, if you if you read the Book of Mormon, that you will find peace and joy in your life. And I was a 12-year-old kid going through all those, hormones of maturation and puberty and
Yeah.
and going through social pressures of junior high and all the stuff that went with it. And I thought, I really want those two things in my life. I don't feel them right now, and I really want them. And so, as a 12-year-old kid, every single night, I would before I went to bed, I would read in the Book of Mormon, and I'd read and I'd read and I'd read and I'm like, okay, where is it? Where is this? Where is this peace and joy that I've been promised? I'm like, give it to me.
Testing it. Yeah.
And so I just kept reading, and I didn't feel it, and I'm like, I still feel like this, probably very normal kid feeling like all the pressures of growing up and all of the hormone changes and imbalances and everything that goes along with it, and I wasn't feeling that peace. And one night, after reading for months and months and months, every single night, I got down on my knees and I said, God, I've been promised by your prophet that I would feel peace and joy. And all I had to do was read the Book of Mormon. And I remember the very distinct answer that came back, the very distinct answer that it's not just about reading the Book of Mormon, it's about following the words. It's about doing what is said in the Book of Mormon. That's where you'll find peace and joy. And I remember that answer like so clearly. It wasn't this ambiguous feeling. It was like a very direct, very specific answer that it's not about just reading. It's about doing. It's about actually taking the principles and applying them to my life. And so the next night I had a very different objective in reading the Book of Mormon. It wasn't just so that the words would would zoop into my eyes and I would, make it through page after page. It was about learning what he was trying to teach me. And that was one of those defining moments in my life where I was like, God really knows me. He really is listening. He gave me an answer.
Did did you find peace?
I did. I did. Very much.
I find, yeah, I find that so interesting that why do you think that God let you do that for a month or several months before he's like, hey, you're doing it the wrong way, dummy. Like change the focus here.
I'm not sure. It may have been that he just wanted to see my level of dedication, my level of faith, because that's all I was working off of at the time was just faith. Like the prophet said it, President Kimball
Oh
said it.
yeah.
I'm like, okay, let's go. And I didn't get it, and I didn't get it, and I didn't get it, and I'm like, well, where is it? But I kept doing it, and I think that was an important lesson for me is that the answers comes on God's time. They don't come on my time, not at all. They come on God's time, and it's really cool how He works that way.
Yeah, that makes me think of that line, line upon line, precept upon precept, because you had the faith to follow the prophet to read, and then he's like, okay, now take it a step further, come up a little higher, now start to live these principles. I love that. I think that's so cool.
Yeah.
So you were very modest in your intro. So and I was just reading your bio. So aside from all of these things that you're doing now, you also started with like three or four or five other businesses. Like you've done quite a bit, haven't you?
Yeah. This is my sixth company that I've started. Yeah.
Number six. Okay, so you did all right.
Yeah. It's been a wonderful life, and along the way, actually got right up here. Um, yeah, along the way, I wanted to help other entrepreneurs. So,
Entrepreneur's Paradox.
so I wrote
But you
the
wrote that.
Entrepreneur's Paradox. Yeah, and it's funny because I didn't write this out of a scholarly place. I wasn't studying at Harvard or Stanford or Oxford or any Ford. It was because I made all of the mistakes. Every mistake you can make in entrepreneurship, I made them. And I made them two or three times just to make sure I got got the lesson.
You got
And
hammered in there pretty good.
yeah, and so I when I was able to leave my last company, um, I wrote this book so I could help other entrepreneurs, and I actually thought that was going to be the direction for the foreseeable future. Was I was just going to be helping entrepreneurs go from basement to buyout and help them grow their companies and all that, and God had a very different plan for me, a very different plan because even though this hit the Wall Street Journal bestseller list and all of the things that went along with it, there were some experiences in my life that said, I I don't need to write another business book, which my publisher had asked for. They'd actually asked for a 3-book series, but instead I needed to write a very different book. And that book was, well, as you can see from the shirt, that book
That's
was
Counterfeit Emotions.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's the one you're working on now.
Yes. Yep.
So, if you don't mind me asking, like it sounds to me as if that was a you were headed down a really good road, and then you took almost a 360 on that. Like, what happened? How do you just do that?
Yeah. It was there were two major things that happened along the way. And the first was it's not a happy one. Well, I guess both of them are a little hard. But the first was I went through a divorce. I went through one of the hardest trials I've ever been through. And at the time, I would definitely call it a trial. Now I see it as one of the biggest blessings I've ever gone through. And but it it took me to my knees and lower. It was no question the most devastating thing that's happened in my life. And I can look at it now and feel so much gratitude because that's where I needed to go. That's where Curtis Morley needed to go in life because I I wasn't where I needed to be in this journey that was mine. And it's funny because most of my life I thought I was the lead actor in my own movie. But it turns out that in actuality I was just a supporting actor. I am just a supporting actor in the greatest story ever told. And that's the story of Christ and God. And I get to be a supporting actor. And I'll tell you what, Christian, I love this role. It's so much better than the other one.
How I've never heard that before. Would you explain that a little bit more? How's that different? Because I think when I look at my life, I think I'm the main actor, and maybe I'm just looking at it wrong. What's the difference?
Yeah, I felt the same. I felt the same. Like in my life, I thought I was the actor. Like if you're writing the book is about me. If you're watching the
Yeah.
movie, it's the Curtis Morley movie. And it's not. It's the story of Christ. It's the story of God and his love for us. And I'm not the lead role. I'm not the lead role in any way, but I do get the blessing to be a supporting actor. And I do get the blessing to be able to support that story in my life. Because yeah, the funny thing is, as I kept auditioning for this role, I actually never got it. I never got the role of lead actor. And I thought I had to keep I thought I had to keep auditioning for it.
Yeah.
And once I let that go, once I said, you know what? This isn't my story. My story is a piece of a greater story. It was such a release. There was such a relief that I got to be part of this other story where I didn't have to play that lead role. I can play an important role, no question, but I don't have to play the lead role.
So what is the difference? When I think like lead role, I'm trying to control the direction of my life and steer the ship a good direction. And what you're saying is it's like, no, you let Jesus control the ship. You're just on the ship doing the best you can. But like, what is that? How does that look in your life? What's the difference?
Yeah, that I love that you used a couple really key words there. One is control. And we talked a little bit about counterfeit emotions. It turns out that control is the counterfeit of power. That control is actually an illusion. And to kind of cement this idea is that power is what we have inside. Power is what is given to us from God. That's what lives in us is our power. Control is what we try to do to the outside. Power lives here. Control is what we try to exert everywhere else. And the other word was surrender is that in life, one of the most transcendent things we can do. You talked about line upon line, precept upon precept. One of
Yeah.
the most transcendent things we can do is surrender, is not try and control. And very specifically, what I mean by that is surrender is authentic and its counterfeit is resignation. Resignation says, I'm not going to try. I'm just going to give up. It's not worth it. I'm not going to try. Surrender, on the other hand, it's not waving the white flag. It's not saying I give up. That's resignation. That's the counterfeit
Okay.
is resignation. Surrender says I'm going to do my best and then I'm going to give God the rest. I'm going to do everything I can to achieve a goal or to strive or to find greatness. And then I'm going to give God the rest. I don't get to control the consequences. I get power within me to take action. I get the power to choose. I get my agency. But the control over what happens after that, that is so not mine. That is not mine at all. That is God's.
Okay, so that was you're breaking my brain here. I want to help me understand this. So it almost seems that these two dichotomies are correlated to, or they're connected. Power and surrender go hand in hand, and so do control and resignation. And so, for example, if I have a business goal, I want to make X amount of dollars this year,
Hmm.
and I do the best I can, and the consequences will be what they will be. That's more like surrender, where it's
Yeah.
now it's out of my hands after I've done what I can do, and I'm going to be okay with that.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that different from power?
So the surrender piece of it, the power is the first part of that equation. Like you just said, I'm going to do everything I can. I'm
Okay, so it's like the input and the output. So power is what I put into it. Surrender is what comes out of it. And surrender is being okay with what comes out.
exactly. Yep. That's exactly it.
So then conversely, um, control. So I don't understand the difference between control and power.
Yeah. So control is an illusion. Control is an absolute illusion. We think we have control of our lives. We think that um, I do these things and I have this guarantee of whatever happens at the end. But if you look at it, if you look at it, we don't have control of anything. Like truly, like if you get, and I'll take you on this transcendent journey with me.
Please do. Yes.
Um, but we don't have control of anything. And to prove that point, you think about you think about what you consider yours. Like I own this. This is mine. And ownership is actually the counterfeit of stewardship. And we can talk about that in a minute. But you think about, okay, what are all the things that are mine? Well, I have my car and my money and my house and my wife and my kids and my these are all mine. The truth is they're not. The truth is that anything and everything can be taken from us. And as I went through my divorce, I got to experience that firsthand. I got to experience that very literally firsthand, where everything was taken, where it was gone. The things that I thought were mine, my spouse, my kids, my house, my all of it, my job, my title as cool guy, CEO, entrepreneur, president, blah blah blah, all of it can be taken. And there's only a few things that are sovereignly ours. In this life, there's only a couple. Like this microphone, it can be taken. The computer I'm talking to you on can be taken. Anything can be taken except for a couple things. And one is our ability to choose, our agency. That is sovereignly ours. We have that, and that's where our power comes from, is that ability to choose. The second one is that we have a relationship with God in Christ. That's something that cannot be taken away. And the third one is our souls. Our souls are the only things. So those three things, our agency, our relationship with God in Christ, and our soul, everything else can be stripped away from us. And as it's stripped away, we realize what is real. We realize like our titles can be stripped away. Everything can be stripped away. And here's the beauty is that the flip side of that is that if everything can be taken away and it's not really ours, that means everything is a gift.
Hmm.
Everything.
I was getting
And
kind of sad there, but that now it sounds really good.
including the breath that we breathe, including the beat in our heart. Every single one of those is a gift. Our health can be stripped away so quickly. At the same time I was going through a divorce, my mom had breast cancer, and it just showed me there again, it can all be taken away. Our health can be gone just like that. We can get in a car accident just like that. It can all be taken away. But then we flip that coin and we see that means everything is a gift. That there's nothing that I don't experience that's not a gift to me. And that includes pain. That includes this life that we are going through, this journey, this experience. Every piece of it is a gift.
So, so if help me understand this a little bit further. So we have power is the way I see it. You mentioned there's those three things that are ours. So our agency, our relationship with Jesus and Heavenly Father, and then our souls to some extent. And so that almost seems to align with our agency is the power that we put into the equation if we're using it correctly. The the I guess stewardship would be our relationship with Jesus Christ and God, and then surrender would be our souls, where we just surrender the outcome to Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ. Am I anywhere in the ballpark?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. It's so funny because anytime that we try and control, anytime we try and control others or our environment or the things that happen around us, anytime we try and do that, it's actually one of the 4 criteria to know if I'm in an authentic or if I'm in a counterfeit emotion. So
Will
there's
you say that one more time?
yeah, there's 4 things that determine whether or not we're in an authentic emotion or whether we're in a counterfeit emotion. And would it be okay if I illustrated those 4?
Please do. Yeah.
So the first is connection. Does this emotion connect me? And does it connect me in 4 ways? The first is, does it connect me to myself? That eternal soul we talked about? Does this emotion connect me to that person, not the body, not the outward appearance, not the title, does it connect me to me? Second, does it connect me to others? Does it connect me to you? Does it connect me to those around me? And then third is, does it connect me to God? Does it connect me to my higher power? And does it connect me to my divinity, my eternal divinity? And then the fourth way it connects is, does it connect me to truth? And if this emotion that I'm feeling, let's take, for example, love. When we feel love, it's amazing because we can't love anyone more than we love ourselves. It's not possible. It's not possible to love anyone more than we love ourselves. We can be nice to people more than we're nice to ourselves. And nice is actually, believe it or not, a counterfeit emotion.
I believe that one, actually.
And kind is the authentic. But
Yeah.
we can't love more than we love ourselves. And so when I feel love, I'm feeling love here to start. Then I'm feeling love for you. And that usually connects me to my divinity and truth. When we talk about surrender, you know, surrender does the same thing. It connects me to myself, the true self, not the mask that I put on, not the okay, who am I going to be today? What title am I going to wear? All of those
Yeah.
things, because there's only one title that can't do damage, and that's child of God. Every other title can do damage to us, including the ones we think of as positive. Every single,
Father, husband.
yeah. If we put our worth in those things and we say, my worth is being a
Oh,
CEO, my worth is being a father, my worth is being a mother, my worth is being a race car driver, or, that high
yeah.
school quarterback. That's where my worth is. Anytime we put worth into a title, it's damaging.
Could I ask an additional question there?
Yeah.
don't forget where we are because I want to come back. But so
Okay.
in my vernacular, the way I see that is when we put our worth above child of God. For example, I have many friends who put their worth as a husband and father. It's paramount. And in my mind, that's your God. My family, like your family is your God. That's what you worship and orient your entire life about. And, and I know that's not correct. I know that worshiping Jesus Christ will yield better fruit for you and your family than if you just worship your family. But I haven't been able to express why. And it sounds like you're headed down that trail. And if you've got an answer, man, I would love to hear that.
Yeah. And a great way I can illustrate this is with a story, with an experience in my own life, is um is like you talked about that bio of my past life. You know, CEO, Hall of Fame on the Inc. 500, 5,000 list, contributor to Forbes magazine, 40 under 40 CEO, all of these things. And here's the crazy thing. You would think, oh, that's great. Wow, holy cow, I can't believe you were Entrepreneur of the Year. This is so cool. And it was, except that I put my worth in that Lucite trophy. And then I put my worth on the shelf. I said, okay, I'm Entrepreneur of the Year. Look, everybody, there's my worth. It's right there. It's on the shelf. See how much I'm worth? And then we were my company. We were the fastest growing company in the Utah Valley. And I said, hey, look, I'm of worth again. Did you see that? I'm of worth because now I've got another award. Look how pretty this one is. And every time that would happen, I would put my worth in that. And that's not where worth can live. It's not possible because our worth has to live inside. And anytime we put our worth in a title, whether it's Entrepreneur of the Year or CEO or even Father, when we put our worth in that and those things can be stripped away, it's funny because one year we were the fastest growing company in the Silicon Slopes. The next year, guess what? We weren't.
So no.
And we were still, top 10, but we weren't that number one spot.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
your worth is depreciating at this point.
My perceived worth, yes, is
Perceived worth.
the worth that I perceived was on that shelf. Wait, we're not number one anymore. I might not be as worth as much. And the truth is, our worth can't change. And it's fun when I speak quite a bit to large groups, is I ask them the question, what is the definition of worth? And
I have
most
no idea.
most people don't. Most people are like, oh shoot, you got me. I don't know. And the definition of worth is what you're willing to pay for something or what someone is willing to pay. So for
Okay. So
example,
market value.
you rebuild a classic car. Well, how do you know what that car is worth? Well, it's whatever someone is willing to pay for that. That's what the worth is. And if you apply that to us, our price has already been paid.
But you just blew my mind.
Our worth is set. It can't be changed. And as I was going through my divorce, one of my best friends, his name is Big Wave Dave. We still
Is it
call him.
really?
That was his high school nickname, and we still call
And it stuck. Poor
him.
guy.
I was sitting on his porch, and this was right at the beginning, and it was so hard. Oh, Christian, it was so hard. And he asked me a question. He said, Curtis, you know your worth can't be diminished in the sight of God. And I said, yeah, Dave, I know that. I know that he's gonna love me no matter what. Yeah. And he looks at me with this seeing look, like this, almost like he
Yeah.
was steering into my soul. And he goes, but do you know you can't increase your worth either? And that's when I had to stop and I'm like, wait a minute. My whole life, I've been trying to increase my worth. My whole life, I've been trying to prove, look how much I'm of worth. And the fact is, my price has been set, and it's been an eternal sacrifice that was paid for me. It's not, it's not a little price. It's infinite. It is infinite. That is the price that was paid for me. And I don't get to change that. I can't say I can't say that it's less now or it's more now. I don't get to change that. It is fixed. That my worth is infinite. And the beauty is that he paid that price for everyone. Paid that same price. And so Christian's worth is exactly the same as Curtis's worth, is exactly the same as anyone else. Doesn't matter if they're president of the United States or if they are homeless. That same price has been paid, and that is their worth.
I love that. Value is what someone will pay for it. And then Jesus, like he paid everything for us. So what are we worth? Everything.
Everything.
And I love that. So, okay. So I think I understand that principle of worth. Maybe I don't. I understand it. I have such a pragmatic mind, which makes it really hard to take these principles and then think, okay, how does that apply in my life? How does that change what I do? So going back to the example of a family, if my worth is based off of my title of, let's say father, why is that a bad thing?
So the value of being a father is not bad. It's not bad at all. The value of being a father is important. It's critical. And when we place our worth in it, and that can be taken from us, and I won't get into all the details of what happened with my divorce, but all of a sudden, I had put my worth in being this church going, father and husband, and all of these things that weren't the case anymore. All of a sudden, that was ripped away from me. And all of a sudden, where did my worth go? Wait, it went with those things. As those things were taken, my perceived worth was taken with it. And that's why it can be damaging, is because when we put our worth in that, we're not putting our worth in truth. Our worth isn't in being a dad. Our stewardship is being dad. Percent, yes. Our stewardship is so important to be a dad and to raise kids in the gospel and to understand the Christ's atonement and how it applies to us and everyone around us. That, those are critical pieces. And the difference is I can be a steward of my children. I can be a steward of my marriage. I can be a steward of all those things. But if I put my worth in that and that can be taken away, then perceptually, my worth can be taken away. And that's why
Okay.
it's damaging.
Yeah, I think I understand. So I noticed this on my mission. I'm very ambitious. I just like naturally dream really big, and I bet you do too.
I
It
do.
seems to be most, yeah. You
Yeah.
seem the kind of guy. We're what are those called? Something spirits. I don't know. We're akin, kindred spirits. That's what it is. So on my mission, I realized this, that I like to set really big goals, ridiculous goals, and then chase them down for all that I'm worth. And I was always short by an enormous amount most of the time. And so like on the mission, this was, hey, we the goal is we got to talk to this many people and then get this many people to church, and then we want to baptize this many people. And it just never happened. And it was so frustrating to me because I thought, like, one, I want to be a good missionary. Two, like, God, this is your work. I'm trying so hard. I'm doing my part. So where are you at? And then when I came home, the same thing, but it was more like then that transferred to income, where I just wanted to shoot for this really high income because I tied a lot of value to that then I could provide for my family and have some freedom, those kinds of things.
I hear
Not
you.
bad.
I hear you.
So I think I was on that train, but I had an experience last year where I was helping my wife with a project in her business, and I poured my heart and soul into it. And and it sounds dumb when I bring it up, but it was just this. We were trying to drive traffic to a webinar she did for a specific product she was selling in her business. And so I learned how to build everything out. I learned the Facebook ads, I learned the funnels, I learned the workflows, I put it all together. I did all the whole email sequence, and then we ran ads, and I spent a bunch of my wife's money and ran ads to this. And there was like 200 people signed up, zero showed up.
Mm,
Zero people.
mm.
And I was devastated. And then I thought, okay, I'm gonna fix and tweak a few things. I'm gonna do it again. And I spent a bunch of my wife's money, and there was like 150 people signed up. Nobody showed up again. And I just remember looking back now, and again, it sounds silly, but I went into this period of grief and mourning. I literally mourned the death of this dream and the failure. And I remember just crying in my car after that and thinking, like, what? Why? And then the response I got was something like, "Don't you trust me?" I was like, "Yeah, you know what? I guess I do." It's not all that bad, but I think it ties in here somewhere. I definitely had my value tied to everything exterior, everything existential. Tell me what I did wrong. Tell me how to fix all this. Oh,
Actually, I'll tell you what you did right, if that's okay.
that's even better. Thank you. Yeah, I could use some of that.
Is that like I I one thing I want to make sure of people know is that there is no such thing as a bad emotion. And every emotion we experience is a messenger. The trouble is when we let those messengers become dictators.
As far as like dictating behavior.
Yeah, because here's another transcendental thought is that our thoughts are not truth and our emotions are not truth and they're not dictators either. When we feel something, we don't have to act. We don't have to act on those emotions. And so what you said about sitting in your car crying, that's beautiful. That's beautiful because those emotions are real. Those emotions are valid. Those emotions are, yes, they're bringing a beautiful message to you that is saying this hurt. And there's a reason behind every single one of those. Every trigger we feel is a gift. Every emotion that comes with it, it's a gift because even the counterfeits, we don't want to live in counterfeit emotions. We don't. And counterfeit emotions don't serve us. But what they do is they bring a message. And every counterfeit emotion validates the authentic emotion. And to put this in perspective, how the counterfeit validates the authentic is you look at anger. Anger, when I was doing the research and when I've been digging into, okay, here's my list. There's 36 different dyads of counterfeit emotions. And we talked about a couple like surrender and resignation, or
There's how many?
36.
30. I can't even wrap my head around the first three. My goodness.
That's awesome. As I was going through and I was looking at anger specifically, I originally put anger on the side of authentic. And it was because anger is a secondary emotion. And the underlying emotion for anger is injustice. There's only two reasons. There's only two reasons anyone will ever get angry. That's it. There's not 100 reasons. There's only two reasons you'll ever get angry. One is danger. And if the bear is chasing you, let yourself get angry, feel the adrenaline pumping through your body, grab the stick and poke it in its eye
Yeah.
before it eats you,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's important. That is so important. But the second one is perceived injustice. So those are the only two reasons we'll ever get angry, is if there's real danger or if there's a perceived injustice. And so what I mean when I say every counterfeit validates the authentic is that anger, I moved from the authentic side to the counterfeit side because I found that the authentic emotion is advocacy. And
What does that mean?
so advocacy is taking that same injustice, that very same injustice, and instead of directing it towards wrath and rage and hatred and anger, we put it towards advocacy. And advocacy comes from the Latin based word advocare, which means to invite in, to bring in and to support and protect. So you cannot actually use the word advocate and against in English language. It's grammatically incorrect. You cannot
People
say
say that all the time.
I'm going to advocate against. It's
Yeah.
not that's not correct grammar. You cannot say it. You cannot say I'm going to invite in against. You
Mm,
cannot say that. You
yeah.
could say I'm going to fight against. Yeah,
Right.
you can
So
say
to
that
advocate for.
exactly. And to put a really fine point on it, um, can we do a little pop quiz?
Yeah, I'm gonna fail, but
Well,
let's shoot.
it's okay because in the hundreds, maybe thousands of people that I've asked this question to, I've only had two people that knew the answer.
Oh my
And
gosh, I hope I know.
and and it's totally okay if you don't. But here's the question. Who is Bobby Seale or Huey Newton?
Yeah, no idea. No
Nobody
idea.
does. Nobody does. They're the founders of the Black Panthers, the black activist group that were firebombing cars and rioting and killing police officers. And yet, if I ask you a similar question, who is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.?
Yeah, I know him.
Everyone knows him. Every major city in the US has a street called Martin Luther King Jr.
Martin,
Street,
yeah.
and high schools and junior
Ah,
highs are named after him.
so
And
this is anger versus advocacy.
yes, and that's the point, is nobody knows Bobby Seale. Nobody knows Huey Newton because why? Because they saw injustice, a true injustice of racism, which they said, okay, we see this injustice. Our direction is going to go towards destroying buildings and hurting people and anger and wrath and rage. But Martin Luther King Jr., he said, you know what? I see the same injustice. And instead of going to these other emotions here, I'm going to take that to advocacy. And he said, I will not stand for racism, but what I will stand for is I will stand at the base of the Lincoln Memorial and I will stand with 1 million people to address this issue. But I'm not going to hit you. I'm not going to fight against you. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm going to invite you in and I'm going to advocate for people that are experiencing racism instead of
Mm.
fighting against the system or the police or the, whatever it is. I'm not gonna fight against, I'm gonna advocate for. And he did that with 1 million people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredible. Help me bring this home into my house. I often find myself angry over silly things more than I want to be, and I don't ever really want to be angry, but it's like, I've got young kids and I love them to death, but sometimes, man, sometimes the amount of silly things, it's like, for example, um, my 5-year-old son doesn't like dinner. And so he goes off like, no, mom, you got to make me this. And I say, no, we're not making another dinner. This is what it is. You can eat, or, you can go hungry or find something else yourself. And then, it just gets pushed and we butt heads. And then I get angry. instead of getting angry in that situation, how can I advocate for my son? What does
Uh,
that look like?
I love that. I love that because that is such a beautiful question, Christian. I love that you want the answer to the
I
question.
want to be a better guy. I want to be a better dad.
Yeah, yeah, and it every single one of the dyads or pairings of counterfeit and authentic emotions has a model of how do I go from anger into advocacy? How do I go from resignation into surrender? How do I go from nice into kind? And so with this model in particular, the anger and advocacy model, it really comes down to looking at the injustice or the perceived injustice. And I use that word very intentional, perceived. It's because, as a 5-year-old kid, a perceived injustice is that my milk is not as full as my brother's milk.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
really an injustice? No, it's really not.
But it's
Um,
the end of the world
yeah,
to him. Yeah.
yeah. And so looking at that injustice, because there's this pendulum that we think we need to either be on one side or the other, and the opposite of uncentered is still uncentered. If the pendulum swings,
I see. You're just on the other end now.
yeah, you're still uncentered. And on this side is anger, or what we can call aggression. And if the ball swings to the other side, we're still uncentered. This is suppression. So here is aggression, here is suppression. On this one, I'm going to yell and scream and hit things. On this one, I'm just going to be like, well, no, I'm going to be nice. I'm going to be, I'm not going to say anything about it. And both of those are damaging. Both. That's why anger actually validates advocacy because of what's underneath. And what's underneath is that injustice. And when we stop the swinging, when there's no more mood swing back and forth from now I'm mad to now I'm the nice guy, now I'm mad, what we find in the center is expression. So we've got aggression, suppression, and expression. And we've got this healthy addressing of I see an injustice, therefore I am going to address that. But I'm going to do it in healthy ways. I'm going to do it inviting in. I'm not going to go to Rage Monster and scream
Yeah.
and yell. Instead, I'm going to say, hey, let's talk about this.
So
Let's,
we got to MLK it instead of Black Panther it on my 5-year-old.
that's right. We want to totally MLK it. That now is a verb. Uh, yeah, that's
Okay.
awesome.
So, so I, y- I just got to get your book because there's so many things I want you to explain to me. But you mentioned that there's the four things to, I think, knowing that you're in a counterfeit or a true emotion. We
Yeah,
hit connection.
the criteria. Yep. So number one is connection. And just to run through them real quick. So connection, direction, motivation, and valuation. I I crafted them all with a shun at the end, so it'd be
Yeah.
easy
I
to
love
remember.
it. I love it.
Connection, direction, motivation, and valuation. And if so, going to that second one, what is the direction? So the first one is about connecting self, others, God, truth. The second one is direction. What is the direction this emotion takes? And every authentic emotion, and this proves out true on in every one of them, takes me in three directions. One is forward, another is upward, and the third is together. If this emotion, it takes me somewhere, and a great example of this is pain and misery. Pain is actually authentic. And, you think about the saying, no pain, no,
No gain.
right? Why?
Yeah.
Why is that a saying? It's because pain takes us somewhere. Pain moves us forward. Pain moves us upward. It increases our muscles. It helps us to grow. Pain moves us. It takes us to those places. And pain also connects. When we feel pain, we can connect with others that have felt that same pain. Misery is its counterfeit, and misery is insidious. Oh, misery is one of those emotions that keep us trapped. And you think about the saying with misery, right? Misery loves,
Company.
because there's only one direction that counterfeits take us. It doesn't do the opposite of the authentic. It is circular. That misery has to have more misery to survive. If you don't continually fuel misery with more misery, it will naturally fizzle out. It will dissipate. It'll just be gone. If you feed that misery, oh boy, it can grow and grow and grow and grow. And so the direction of authentic emotions are forward, upward, and together. The direction of a counterfeit is back to itself. That's the only direction counterfeit emotions take you. Resignation is like, oh, I can't do it. Well, what do you feel when you say that? You feel like Netflixing for like 10 hours and,
Yeah.
when
Lethargic, apathetic,
yes, because
being sedentary.
it needs more resignation to fuel itself. You look at any of the counterfeits and that direction is back to itself. Anxiety breeds anxiety,
Right. Okay.
right? All of them come back to themselves. And so that's the second criteria. The third is motivation. And this goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, is every authentic emotion is based in love and surrender. And I call these meta emotions. I call them emotions above emotions. They encompass all of the authentic.
And what were they again? Love
Love and surrender.
and surrender. Okay.
Yeah. Every authentic emotion is based in love and surrender. Every counterfeit emotion is based in fear and control. And we talked about control right at the beginning, that every counterfeit emotion tries to control. Anxiety tries to control our brains and tries to, when we're in an anxious state, we want to control everything, right? We
Yeah.
want, you hear it all the time. I feel like I'm out of control, or like I don't have control over this. And that's the motivation behind every single one of the counterfeits. Fear is the starting, control is the secondary. And so when we're in a counterfeit emotion, that's what we're experiencing. We're experiencing fear and the desire to control.
One thing I always found interesting is that when men or women are visited by heavenly beings, there's often the invitation to fear not.
So true.
And maybe you're onto something here.
It's so true. And you look at the youth theme, is fear not, doubt not.
Okay.
That
I didn't know what
that's
it is. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, the youth theme this year. And you look over and over and over again in the scriptures, Christ, how many times did Christ say, fear not?
All the time.
Because that is the base of the motivation for every counterfeit emotion, is fear. We only get in counterfeit emotions when we subscribe to fear, when we pay our 1099 subscription fee every month. And we're like, yeah, I'll sign up for fear.
Give me a little more fear. Hope he
Spotify,
does.
Netflix, and fear. Yeah, I'm going for it.
So, so if you could condense all of that down and just give somebody who's listening an actionable nugget. So if there's fear in their life, what could they do? What is just like the first step in improving and getting out of this and moving towards the meta emotions of love? What do they do?
Yeah, I love that. And and I know our time is short. I wanted to just hit on valuation really
Please,
quick
please do.
and then come back to this if that's
Yeah.
okay. So the fourth
Yeah.
criteria, again, when you're feeling an emotion, ask yourself, does this emotion connect me? Where does this emotion take me? What is the motivation behind this emotion? And finally, how does this emotion value me? What does this emotion say about my value? Every authentic emotion says my value is divine. that I have an eternal worth. Every single one of them. Every one of the counterfeit emotions says I'm worthless. And not only am I worthless, but I'm worth less, meaning I have to
Mm.
compare myself against others. So already I'm worthless, which is 0, but now I'm worth less because Christian's so much younger than I am and he has so much more opportunities and all these things. So I have to compare myself to others, which means I was already at 0 with worthless. Now I'm worth less. Now I'm in the negative and I keep going down. And that's what the counterfeit emotions do. They say we're worth less. And specifically, one of those that really illustrates this point is the dyad of guilt and shame. That guilt says, I did something wrong. Shame says, I am wrong. Guilt says, I made a mistake. Shame says, my existence as a human is a mistake. And it takes that worth and says, nope, not you. You're worthless. Other people might have worth, but not you. You're worthless. And that's what those counterfeit emotions do. So thank you for letting me get through all 4 criteria. And coming back to your question about fear is, uh, is that meta emotion of surrender and love is that if we place ourselves in the care of Christ, if we place ourselves in the arms of a loving Heavenly Father, that no matter what, we're going to be taken care of. And it doesn't mean we're going to be excluded from pain. No, pain is actually part of the program. And mistakes are part of the program. Like you think about when was Christ called as our Savior? When did he volunteer as our Savior? Was it after Adam and Eve took a bite of the forbidden fruit? No, it wasn't. It wasn't like we were all up in heaven looking down and be like, "Hey, look, there's Adam and Eve." Oh man, okay, shoot.
Now we need a
Oh, they
savior.
ate forbidden fruit. All right, we need a savior. Who's up for it? Who's
Yeah.
up for it? It wasn't that. It was before a single atom was combined to make this earth. That's when Christ was chosen. And you think about that, no one had made any mistakes. No one had sinned. No one had fallen short. Which says, wait a minute, that means the plan had to include those things. If Christ was chosen before the earth was made, that means the plan included us screwing up. It included us making mistakes over and over and over again. It included all of the heartache. That was part of it because Christ was willing to pay the price for all of those. And we know that. We know that it's okay to fall short. It's okay to fall down as long as we reach back up because his hand is always extended. That when we fall, he's there. And that's part of the plan. That's not just part of the plan. That is the plan. That is the plan for us to come to earth and screw up and maybe even screw up royally.
Yeah, I'm doing really well at that, by the way.
Because each time we do, we have the chance to lift our hand and take his. And it's fascinating. The Greek translation and the Hebrew translation, both, hamartia it actually is an archery term. And it says, for sin, it says that I missed the mark. And that's it. It doesn't say I don't get another chance. It doesn't say, well, do you ever watch Tom and Jerry where the trap door would open and there's Satan with his pitchfork and he's like,
Yeah.
come on down. No, that's not what it means. It means I missed the mark. I was shooting for the mark, but I missed it. And guess what? I can pull my bow back again and I can take another shot because Christ gave us that chance. He's not only our Savior, He's our Redeemer. And for most of my life, I had no idea what the term Redeemer meant. But what it means is that He buys us back. That every time we fall, every time He buys us back. And we get another shot. And we don't have to wait until the pearly gates. It's, Him being our Savior, His crucifixion and atonement happened 2,000 years ago. And then, the pearly gates, it's going to apply. But what about in between? What about that time in between? Every second of that is when He buys us back. And we make mistakes, we screw up. I've screwed up so much. And He's bought me back every time. And when we know that He buys us back, and when we know that our God, the most powerful being in the universe, knows us individually, that's when we can live without fear. That's when we can live in the authentic.
Yeah, thank you, Curtis. I had an experience that I think illustrates that to some degree. When we were kids, I've got 5 brothers, and we were in the kitchen, and my dad was in the other room, and my little brother, he was probably like 10 at the time. He knocked over some glass vase or a bowl, I don't remember, but it hit the ground and shattered. It was really loud, so we all knew that Dad heard it. And he just looked at me with that face like that. Oh no. But he was terrified. He was so scared. And then my dad came in. He's like, "What happened? Who did this?" And I looked at my brother, and he just looked distraught. So I looked at my dad and said, "I did it." And so I whatever the consequence was, I think I sat in timeout or something. I had to clean it up and sit in timeout. And then my brother came over later, and he said, "Thank you for doing that." And I said, "That's what big brothers do." And when I said that, it struck me that, yeah, that's exactly right. That's what big brothers do, because we all break the vase, and Jesus Christ is there to take the punishment and then give us another shot and pick us back up. And man, I'm so grateful for that, because the amount of times I've thrown that vase on the ground, it's ridiculous at this point, Curtis. But here's a pop quiz for you, my friend.
To me.
What's the most important step a man can take?
What's the most important step a man can take?
Yeah. And you can argue any answer, but there's only one right answer here.
I would say step towards God.
That's probably it. The answer is the next one, and it should be that direction. And I love that, because you just keep going. You just keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you. If people can't get enough of you, Curtis, how do they get more?
You can go to counterfeitemotions.com, and if they want to book me as a speaker, they can. There's a page, I think it's called Speaking. You can join our Facebook group. We've got an active Facebook group. Just search for Counterfeit Emotions there. And then, if they want to take any of the master classes of learning how to get out of the counterfeits and into the authentic, they're listed on the website. And so, they can find all about it there. And the book, cross our fingers, the book will be available in September. That's our current target date for.
Oh, that's so long. I was hoping it would be like next month.
Well, if you join the Facebook group, you can actually get pre-read chapters.
Oh, okay.
So, if you want to be part of the beta group and get those chapters, then you can do that.
Hey, well, I'll see you there. Thank you so much, Curtis. Thank you for joining us on the Rebellion.
Thanks for joining this episode of The Holy Rebellion. We'll see you next week.